Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into a stack of insights and hopefully emerge with a clearer understanding, maybe even a few genuine smiles along the way. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into a literary voice that's really unlike any other Kurt Vonnegut. You've provided us with this, well, fascinating collection of his commencement-style writings, full of that signature wit and irreverence, often aimed at young, impressionable minds. Our mission then is to kind of peel back the layers of his distinctive humor and directness to uncover the profound truths he imparted. We'll be focusing on creativity, resilience, and, well, humanism. We'll be drawing primarily from his collected speeches, which are aptly titled, If This Isn't Nice, What Is? But we'll also bring in this rich tapestry of philosophical, rhetorical insights, think Aristotle, Cicero, plus motivational wisdom from people like Dale Carnegie, Simon Sinek, Les Brown, and even some sharp observations from Steve Jobs. So this isn't just about, understanding Vonnegut. It's a chance to see how his seemingly simple, often unconventional advice actually resonates through centuries of established wisdom and maybe finds new meaning in modern thought.
Yeah, and what truly strikes me about Vonnegut, right, is his remarkable ability to just cut through all the noise, often with this, mischievous twinkle in his eye. He delivers these core humanistic messages that maybe at first glance seem almost too simple, but they carry this undeniable weight. We'll explore how his extraordinary personal experiences, from the horrors of war to his academic wanderings, really shaped his views on kindness, resilience in the face of absurdity, and just the sheer or sometimes dark humor of life itself. We'll investigate why he believed humor was such a potent vehicle for wisdom, especially for young people. And ultimately, we'll be asking, what did this unique teacher, this keen observer of man, as you actually put it, what did he want young people to truly grasp as they stepped into the complex, often bewildering adult world?
Vonnegut's unconventional wisdom, the foundation of a humane life.
Okay, so diving right in. Let's start with what many consider Vonnegut's core tenet, maybe the foundational piece of advice he gave out. He apparently offered it to fans who were seeking his counsel, and it's just disarmingly simple, almost blunt, really, yet profoundly challenging when you think about its implications for our daily lives. He stated it plainly. There's only one rule I know of. God damn it, you've got to be kind. Wow. That's not about mere politeness, is it? It feels like a fundamental approach to how we even exist.
Absolutely. And expanding on that, this idea of kindness delivered with such raw, almost, expletive force by Vonnegut, it echoes fundamental principles across various fields, though maybe with different underlying motivations. Think about Dale Carnegie's timeless advice on human interaction from how to win friends and influence people. Carnegie famously told us to talk in terms of the other person's interests. Now, okay, that might sound a bit strategic, maybe even manipulative at first listen, but Carnegie goes deeper. He isn't suggesting just some superficial ploy to get what you want. It's more a practice of empathetic engagement, building genuine rapport and connection. He shows this really well with that anecdote about the post office clerk, remember? Carnegie saw that the clerk, probably bored stiff with the monotonous grind of weighing envelopes, making change.
Yeah.
He truly lit up when Carnegie found something to honestly admire in him. It's a specific detail about his work or his person that went beyond the purely transactional.
Right, finding something real.
Exactly. This act of seeking the good, or at least the interesting and unique in another person. That's a profound form of kindness, isn't it? It's about acknowledging their humanity, seeing them as more than just, a functionary. And similarly, his experience with the policeman, where Carnegie quickly and enthusiastically admitted fault for speeding, that led to this remarkably magnanimous response from the officer. By just disarming the situation with honesty and zero defensiveness, he allowed the policeman to exercise mercy and understanding, which, led to a better outcome for both of them.
That's about de-escalating, in a way.
Kind of, yeah. But while Carnegie often frames kindness as this practical strategy for effective interaction, Vonnegut just strips it down. It becomes this unconditional moral imperative. Where Carnegie teaches us how to use kindness to foster rapport, Vonnegut seems to demand that we just be kind. Regardless of the immediate outcome, it emphasizes this deeper, almost existential ethical commitment. Less about winning friends, maybe, and more about affirming a shared humanity.
That's a really crucial distinction, yeah. The strategic versus the existential, as you put it. And beyond these individual interactions, Vonnegut's idea of kindness seems to extend to this broader, almost spiritual sense of mercy. He revealed he was enchanted by the Sermon on the Mount and then made this astonishing declaration, being merciful, it seems to me, is the only good idea we have had so far. And then he adds, Perhaps we will get another good idea by and by, and then we will have two good ideas.
Hmm.
I mean, to call mercy our only good idea after millennia of human thought and progress, that's quite a statement. It's incredibly humbling, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And what really strikes me about that statement is the profound humility just baked into it. It frames mercy not just as a virtue, but as this rare, precious insight, almost like an anomaly in the often brutal course of human history. It makes you wonder, about the default human condition if mercy is such a unique, hard-won idea.
Hmm.
And if we turn to classical thought, Aristotle, in his rhetoric, he places immense emphasis on the speaker's character, their ethos, as a means of persuasion. He notes that we are more persuaded and more quickly by decent people, especially, he says, in areas of divided opinion where, precision and absolute proof are lacking. Now, Vonnegut isn't explicitly linking kindness to rhetorical persuasion here, not directly, but a merciful and kind disposition. It inherently builds trust and goodwill with an audience. It makes any message he delivers feel more resonant, more readily accepted.
So it builds credibility.
Exactly. It's not about being weak or saccharine. It's about cultivating a kind of moral authority that earns respect. Aristotle's point is that a good reputation is taken by everyone as a person of serious stature, or the sort of person who has something everyone aspires to. A merciful person, just by their nature, projects an ethos that others find appealing and trustworthy. This moral standing isn't just persuasive, it also grants a certain, gravitas to their pronouncements, as if the speaker has seen enough of the world to distill its most essential truths. So for Vonnegut to champion mercy as our singular great idea, it suggests he saw it as the ultimate expression of human decency, a kind of bulwark against the inherent chaos and indifference of the universe.
Okay, so from individual character and moral philosophy, let's pivot to something bigger. Global conflict. Vonnegut's experience as an infantryman in World War II, it profoundly shaped his anti-war stance, right? It influenced so much of his writing, and he didn't mince words. He declared, war turns everybody into maniacs. Just a stark, chilling assessment of its dehumanizing effects. He also starkly reminded graduates, I quote God Almighty who said this, thou shalt not kill. Very direct. And he deeply critiqued how victory was measured, especially through body counts. He observed, we announce each day so-and-so many communists killed. Perhaps the other side counts the bodies of our young men and announces so-and-so many capitalists killed. And to complete. He saw the Vietnam War in particular as a slaughterhouse.
Yeah, and this brings to mind a really critical insight about the role of rhetoric and persuasion, or sometimes the lack thereof, in the context of conflict. You look at Demosthenes, the great Athenian orator, in the Philippics. He meticulously documented how political leaders and, frankly, public opinion drove Athens into these protracted, often disastrous wars against Philip of Macedon. He highlights the public's unwillingness to actually fund the military properly and how generals felt estranged from their city. It shows this complex web of political maneuvering, economic factors, public sentiment, all fueling conflict, often despite popular hesitancy to make the real sacrifices needed.
It's never simple.
Never. Demosthenes' speeches frequently challenged the policy of peace at any price, sure, but he also critiqued leadership failures and public inaction. He lamented empty votes and the derision they faced from their enemies. She shows that war is rarely just a simple choice. It's this complex, often tragic outcome of human systems and, importantly, rhetoric. And then, in stark contrast to all that elaborate historical and rhetorical context, you have Vonnegut's simple, almost primal command: let the killing stop. It just stands as this powerful ethical counterpoint.
It cuts right through it all.
Exactly. It's a fundamental moral position, transcending all the intricate political debates and justifications for military action. It resonates with what Aristotle called common law, or natural law, those universal moral truths that all people have a notion of as naturally just and unjust, even if specific laws differ everywhere. Vonnegut just strips away the layers of political rhetoric, the nationalistic fervor, the strategic calculations, to expose the raw, destructive core of war. He highlights that the dehumanization, the turning into maniacs, isn't exclusive to one side. It's a universal consequence of the act itself. His profound humanism, which was clearly forged in the crucible of his own combat experience, it compels him to see the shared suffering. It cuts through the partisan narratives that often obscure the brutal reality of violence. He's not arguing strategy, he's just pleading for humanity.
That's such an important point. He's cutting through the noise to simply address the loss of humanity. And, on a more personal level, yet maybe equally pervasive human struggle. Vonnegut observes something really profound about modern society. He said people are crying out not so much for money as for relief from loneliness. Well, he believed the nuclear family doesn't provide nearly enough companionship,
And he even advocated for bringing back extended families and puberty ceremonies for psychological strength. He was apparently so serious about this that he semi-seriously pronounced graduates, women and men, as a kind of belated puberty ceremony, noting its absence in ultra-modern, massively industrialized societies. It's an insightful take, isn't it? Suggesting that our societal structures, in their push for efficiency and individualism, might actually be failing us in these very fundamental human ways.
Oh, absolutely. This speaks to a deep, often unacknowledged human need that modern society frequently overlooks, or maybe even actively suppresses. You look at someone like Les Brown. In his Principles for Life, he consistently emphasizes the paramount importance of relationships. He urges us to regularly check your relationships and ask, are they pushing you up or dragging you down? Right. He highlights that you have greatness to pursue. Don't let anyone slow you down. And this really reinforces Vonnegut's idea that strong communal bonds and meaningful rites of passage are absolutely crucial for individual well-being, for that profound sense of belonging. The absence of these things, as Vonnegut notes, leaves this deep void that material wealth or, superficial connections just cannot truly fill. And that leads directly to the pervasive loneliness he observed. Brown's call to critically evaluate our relationships really underscores how essential these connections are, not just for emotional support, but for actively propelling us towards our goals and preventing that isolation Vonnegut saw as so detrimental. It's not just about having people around us, is it? It's having the right people, those who uplift, challenge, and genuinely support our growth rather than hinder it.
Yeah, the quality of the connection.
Precisely. And Vonnegut's idea of puberty ceremonies is particularly insightful here. He's identifying a societal mechanism that's been lost, a collective ritual for integrating young people into the adult community, giving them recognized roles, responsibilities, and importantly, robust support structures that counter the inherent isolation of just the nuclear family. He's suggesting that the void left by these missing communal structures is literally leaving us psychologically weaker, more vulnerable to loneliness. It's a powerful argument for the communal over the purely individualistic.
Living consciously appreciating the sweet moments.
This brings us nicely to a really beautiful and I think vitally important aspect of Vonnegut's wisdom, living consciously. One of his most charming and frequently shared anecdotes is about his uncle Alex. He shared how his uncle did his best to acknowledge it when times were sweet, like, we could be drinking lemonade in the shade of an apple tree in the summertime, and Uncle Alex would interrupt the conversation to say, if this isn't nice, what is? That simple phrase. It isn't just a pleasant interjection, is it? It feels like a powerful, almost meditative reminder to notice and truly appreciate happiness, rather than letting life's pleasant moments just slip by, unnoticed, taken for granted.
Yeah. What truly resonates there is that direct call to presence, to gratitude. It aligns perfectly with the idea of conscious engagement in life. Les Brown actually talks about this too. He posits, to be conscious of what we are perceiving or thinking is to be conscious of our own existence. And he often laments that so many people go to their graves with their greatness unrealized, simply because they don't consciously engage with their lives. Right. They allow moments, even profoundly sweet ones, just to pass by unacknowledged, always looking for the next thing. Vonnegut's Uncle Alex provides this immediate, practical, and frankly joyful method for that engagement. It's a simple, almost ritualistic affirmation of the present moment. It's about savoring the small, fleeting joys that too often just become background noise in our busy, achievement-focused lives.
We just tune them out.
Exactly. This act of recognition of what is nice helps cultivate a habit of gratitude. It transforms ordinary moments into something, well, extraordinary. It's a powerful antidote to the constant striving, the perpetual focus on future goals, and, let's be honest, the distraction of technology that can stop us from experiencing the richness of the now. It teaches us to anchor ourselves in the positive aspects of our immediate reality, which in turn fosters resilience against life's inevitable bumps.
It's such a gentle yet profound encouragement. But, there's this fascinating, almost contrasting parallel to this idea in Steve Jobs' stark self-reflection. He famously asked himself every day, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And if the answer was no, for too many days in a row, he knew he needed to change something fundamentally. It's a powerful, almost morbid way to find clarity and drive action, much less gentle than Uncle Alex for sure, yet aiming for a similar kind of conscious engagement with life.
Right. Expanding on that, Jobs' famous quote, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life." It emphasizes a similar theme of conscious living, but from a radically different angle, the undeniable reality of mortality.
Yeah, facing it head on.
Exactly. Both Vonnegut's Uncle Alex and Steve Jobs encouraged this profound awareness of one's own existence and the quality of that existence. But their approaches, as you pointed out, are quite distinct. Uncle Alex encourages an affirmation of present joys, anchoring in the positive niceness of the immediate moment. Jobs, on the other hand, uses the stark reality of impending death as this brutal yet incredibly effective filter. To cut through, as he put it, external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, leaving only what is truly important in his work and life. These two philosophies, though, while they seem like they're at opposite ends of the emotional spectrum, they actually complement each other beautifully, I think.
How so?
Well, Uncle Alex teaches us to cherish the life we are living right now, to find the beauty in the everyday. Jobs, through his more confrontational method, pushes us to make sure the life we are living is the one we actually want to be living, that our daily actions align with our deepest values and aspirations.
Ah, okay. One is appreciating, the other is aligning.
Precisely. Both methods, despite their different emotional tones, ultimately drive individuals towards a more authentic, fulfilling, and consciously chosen life. It's about not allowing life to just be lived on autopilot, but to actively participate in its making, whether that's through joyful appreciation or radical reevaluation.
The Odyssey of a Humanist Vonnegut's Path to Wisdom.
That's a powerful way to frame those two perspectives on conscious living, yeah. Appreciating versus aligning. And having explored Vonnegut's direct advice, it's maybe worth understanding the journey that led him to these kinds of profound conclusions. His intellectual odyssey, it's as telling as his counsel, really. He started his academic life studying chemistry at Cornell. Seems like a very analytical, hard science path. Then, bam, he endures 3 years in the goddamned infantry of World War II, an experience that, well, deeply scarred him. After the war, he entered graduate school in anthropology at the University of Chicago. And he remarked, after going through the war and all, I thought man was the thing to study. He added, I really think it ought to be done in second grade, but better in graduate school than nowhere else. And it was interesting. That's a huge pivot, isn't it, from studying physical matter to studying humanity itself?
Oh, absolutely. And this prompts a key question. What exactly drove that profound intellectual and personal shift? Simon Sinek's Start with WI framework actually illuminates this beautifully, I think. Sinek argues that people and organizations thrive when they clearly articulate their purpose, cause, or belief. Their WIY. Vonnegut's initial what was chemistry, studying the physical world, its elements, reactions. Then his harrowing war experience, which he described as tearing a big chunk out of my life, forced him to confront the human condition in its most brutal, chaotic, and often irrational forms. This wasn't just, a career change. It was a radical reevaluation of his fundamental why.
The war changed everything.
It seems like it. It didn't just change his external circumstances. It completely redefined his internal compass. He shifted his purpose from understanding physical matter to understanding humanity itself, its absurdities, its cruelties, but also its surprising capacities for kindness. His decision to study anthropology was a direct realignment with this deeper humanistic purpose. It's a powerful example of what Sinek describes as finding one's authentic what out why.
Yeah.
It kind of mirrors Sinek's example of Apple, which he says was built to champion a cause, to challenge the status quo and to empower the individual. Vonnegut's war experience gave him a new, undeniable cause to study, critique, and ultimately champion humanity. It really highlights that often the most profound personal experiences can reveal or solidify our deepest motivations and purposes, leading to a complete reorientation of one's life and work. It's a real testament to resilience, too, finding new purpose after trauma.
That makes a lot of sense. And beyond his wartime experiences, Vonnegut also came from this interesting background, a long line of German freethinkers. Apparently, this was an organized presence in America that valued open inquiry but largely disappeared after World War I, perhaps partly due to anti-German sentiment. This familial background, this intellectual lineage, must have played a significant role in shaping his perspective too, right?
Oh, definitely. What truly strikes me about that heritage is how it fundamentally underscores Vonnegut's non-dogmatic approach to knowledge and belief. The very term, freethinkers. It implies this readiness to question assumptions, to seek truth independently through reason and empirical observation, prioritizing rational inquiry over inherited dogma or religious orthodoxy or just societal convention.
Question everything.
Pretty much. This intellectual independence aligns perfectly with his later emphasis on universal kindness, his unwavering anti-war stance, and his skeptical yet deeply compassionate view of humanity. This freedom from rigid ideologies, it allowed him to embrace a new path to wisdom, one rooted in observing and understanding man in all his glorious, flawed complexity, rather than just sticking to predetermined scientific or societal frameworks. His transition to anthropology wasn't just a reaction to the trauma of war. It feels like a natural evolution for a mind predisposed to independent thought and this deep, unconstrained curiosity about human behavior. That heritage probably gave him the intellectual courage to look at the world unflinchingly, to point out its absurdities, and to propose solutions like kindness or mercy that weren't necessarily popular or traditional, but stemmed from this deeply considered humanist worldview. It gave him the permission, maybe, to be an iconoclast, but one armed with compassion.
The weapon of wit, why humor carries wisdom so effectively.
Well, okay, now let's talk about perhaps Vonnegut's most recognizable tool, his weapon of wit. His writings are legendary for their wit and irreverence, and we're specifically asked here to consider why humor carries wisdom so effectively. Now, while Vonnegut's texts hint at his distinctive style, they don't really elaborate deeply on the mechanism of humor itself, but we have this surprising and ancient source that actually delves into this. Quintilian, the Roman rhetorician, his insights from, over 2,000 years ago, they still seem to illuminate Vonnegut's genius.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Quintilian's remarkably detailed analysis of humor in his huge work, Institutio Oratoria. He notes, paraphrasing from the Latin, that jesting is sweet and often very useful. He totally understood that humor wasn't just for amusement, it was a potent tool in communication. Very useful. Quintilian even views humor as kind of a natural gift, suggesting it's this innate human capacity that can certainly be refined, but isn't purely an art you learn from scratch. And he identifies two main kinds of jesting. One founded on facts, which would cover things like anecdotes, character sketches, mimicry, all things Vonnegut was an absolute master of in his stories and observations. And the other kind, he says, is awakened by something pointed in a phrase or remark, which speaks directly to wordplay, irony, clever turns of phrase, unexpected juxtapositions, another absolute hallmark of Vonnegut's instantly recognizable style. This ancient classification just shows that the fundamental tools of wit and its utility have been understood and appreciated for millennia, suggests its deep roots in human psychology and communication.
It's incredible how timeless those observations feel. Quintilian even touches on the psychological effects of humor on an audience. He says that an opportune display of wit will often restore their flagging spirits, and we may alleviate their boredom by the introduction of entertaining matter. That seems to be exactly what Vonnegut did in his speeches and stories, right? Using humor to keep the audience engaged, disarmed, and receptive, even while delivering very serious, sometimes uncomfortable messages.
Totally. But this prompts a critical question about balance and maybe authenticity when using humor. Quintilian, being a master of rhetoric, wisely warns against overusing or misusing figures of speech, including humor. He states quite clearly that if the orator never ceases to distort his face with affected grimaces or to wag his head and roll his eyes, he becomes a laughingstock.
Don't overdo it.
Exactly. And he cautions further that too much care for our words under such circumstances weakens the impression of emotional sincerity. And wherever the orator displays his art unveiled, the hearer says, the truth is not in him. This suggests that Vonnegut's effectiveness wasn't just in his wit itself, but in his ability to weave humor naturally and authentically into his message, making it feel organic, heartfelt, and deeply truthful, rather than artificial or overly performative. His humor served the truth. It didn't overshadow it. He used it like a lens to help us see more clearly, not like a mask to hide behind. The key, as Quintilian implies, is in its opportune use, making it useful without making it seem like just a trick.
Okay, so given this deep understanding of humor's mechanics, how does it become such an effective carrier of wisdom, especially for challenging, even grim topics like war or societal failings? It still seems kind of counterintuitive using laughter when discussing such grave matters.
Well, one way to look at it is that humor can expertly bypass our natural defenses. It makes uncomfortable truths far more palatable, more digestible. Quintilian talks about allegory, sarcasm, urbane wit as ways to disguise bitter taunts in gentle words or indicate our meaning by saying exactly the contrary.
Indirection.
Exactly. This indirection, this subtle art of suggestion, allows listeners to engage with complex and challenging ideas without feeling directly attacked or lectured. Vonnegut, through his wit, invites critical thinking by presenting absurdities that reflect deeper societal issues, like his takes on divorce or the lack of modern puberty ceremonies. By framing something as absurd or ridiculous, he highlights its inherent illogic or folly, provoking thought and introspection rather than immediate rejection. As Quintilian notes, everything is laughable that is obviously a pretense. which suggests humor's powerful capacity to expose hypocrisy or absurdity. So when Vonnegut says the nuclear family doesn't provide nearly enough companionship, and then Riley connects it to the prevalence of divorce, his humorous observation, while funny, points directly to a serious sociological critique without ever sounding preachy. He makes you laugh so you'll think.
That approach, engaging without direct confrontation, it seems to align so well with principles of persuasion we see elsewhere, even in modern self-help. Like Dale Carnegie, for instance, advising against argument. He suggests acknowledging the other person's rightness, creating a situation where the affair terminated graciously. Humor can similarly disarm, can't it? Opening the audience to new perspectives by lowering their guard, creating a space for empathy and connection.
Definitely. And what truly strikes me here is how humor also fosters a profound sense of resilience. When facing, frustration, heartache, disappointment, despondency, and defeat, as Ziglar vividly describes the inevitable challenges of life, reacting positively and seeking the benefit in the problem is absolutely key.
Finding the silver lining.
Sort of, yeah. Vonnegut's masterful ability to inject humor, even dark humor, into grim realities, like the horrors of war or the existential loneliness of modern life, allows for this powerful form of reframing. Tony Robbins often talks about reframing negative experiences, consciously changing their meaning or context. Like, he suggests making the mental image of a bad memory smaller or dimmer, thus altering its emotional impact. Now, Vonnegut isn't offering a positive reframe in that traditional self-help sense, but his humor provides this crucial critical distance. It's a way to see the human condition with both its tragedies and its absurdities simultaneously.
Choosing the whole picture.
Right. This critical distance isn't about denial or dismissing pain. It's about processing, understanding, and ultimately building a deeper, more resilient understanding of life, rather than succumbing to despair. He models that man was the thing to study, and humor is one of the most uniquely human responses to that study. It's a way of saying, look at this ridiculousness, this tragedy, but also look at us looking at it and finding a way to laugh, or at least smile, through the absurdity. Larry, the young man in Les Brown's text who dropped out of medical school to become a clown, to make people laugh, he kind of embodies this value of humor as a life's purpose.
Even when his dad disapproved.
Exactly. Even in the face of parental disapproval, "Don't make jokes, son. This is serious. I'll tell you how to make people laugh," his father apparently said. Larry found his why in humor, using it as a tool for connection and joy. It just illustrates its profound value beyond mere entertainment. He understood its power to bring people together and maybe lighten the load of existence.
Action, purpose, and legacy.
Vonnegut's advice, while often humorous and sometimes seemingly cynical, it implicitly calls for action, doesn't it? And renewed sense of purpose from the young people he was addressing. It's not just about observation, it's about engagement. And we see similar powerful calls to action in other commencement speeches, too. Paul Hawken, for instance, in his speech, "The Earth is Hiring," he directly addresses graduates, declaring, "Civilization needs a new operating system. You are the programmers, and we need it within a few decades." Whoa. And he encourages them to take it and run as if your life depends on it. Anna Quindlen similarly urged graduates not to just rebuild the same old house, but to actually remake this country. These aren't light suggestions, are they? They're powerful calls to purpose and, frankly, radical change.
Oh, totally. And this brings to mind an important question about courage and resilience, especially in the face of these daunting, almost overwhelming challenges. Les Brown emphasizes the absolute need to develop courage. He urges listeners to let yourself feel the fears that are holding you back and mentally push them aside.
He's not saying don't be afraid, right? But act despite the fear.
Exactly. And he also highlights Harriet Beecher Stowe's timeless philosophy. When you get into a tight place and everything goes against you until it seems that you cannot hold for a minute longer, never give up then, for that is just the place and time for the tide to turn. Vonnegut's work, with its unflinching look at human folly, the horrors of war, the absurdity of modern life, all the societal shortcomings. It provides the stark context for needing such courage. He doesn't offer easy answers or naive optimism, not at all. Instead, his insights implicitly call for this resilient spirit, a willingness to confront difficult truths, and the courage to act despite the fear, despite the cynicism, despite the monumental scale of the problems, which is precisely what Hawken and Quinlan are asking of their audiences too. It's the understanding of the absurdities and tragedies of the world, illuminated with such clarity by Vonnegut, that makes the call to courageous action feel not just like a suggestion, but like an urgent, necessary imperative. He gives you the truth, however uncomfortable, so you can then find the courage to actually face it.
Ultimately, Vonnegut, the former chemistry student who became a war veteran, then an anthropologist. He delivered this profound, enduring, humanistic message. He was, in his own words, first and foremost a teacher. And his lessons boil down to these core tenets for living a meaningful, humane life in what often seems like a meaningless world. He stripped away the pretension and just got straight to the heart of what it truly means to be human.
Absolutely. Expanding on that, Vonnegut's legacy really is one of unwavering humanity amidst chaos and absurdity. He showed us, through his unique blend of pathos and humor, that even when facing immense suffering, profound loneliness, the inherent irrationality of the universe, things like kindness, mercy, and the ability to find and appreciate joy are not just optional extras.
They're essential.
They are essential to our survival, our dignity, our collective sanity. His humor wasn't a distraction from the gravity of life. It was this potent tool to help us see more clearly, to cope with the unbearable, and most importantly, maybe, to remember our shared humanity. Those common threads that bind us despite all our differences. He encouraged us to observe, to question everything, and to engage with the world with both sharp intellect and profound empathy. He truly embodied that idea that man was the thing to study, and his unique blend of wit and poignancy offered this profound, unforgettable curriculum for understanding ourselves and our place in the universe. He leaves us with a kind of blueprint for a more humane existence, delivered, with a smile and maybe a shrug.
So our deep dive into Kurt Vonnegut's advice for the young reveals a truly unique and, I think, indispensable guide. He implored us to be kind and merciful above all else, to challenge the madness of war, to actively seek connection in an increasingly lonely world, and, to consciously appreciate those nice moments that make life worth living. And all of this he delivered with a wit and irreverence that just cut to the very core of truth, making his wisdom stick.
Yeah, what truly strikes me here is how Vonnegut, the best rhetoricians and storytellers throughout history, really understood that sometimes the most profound lessons, the deepest truths, are best delivered not with a lecture, but with a laugh, or a raised eyebrow, or just a poignant anecdote. His humor didn't dilute the message at all. Instead, it made it impermeable, memorable, deeply human. It encouraged us to study man in all his glorious and flawed complexity, and to never stop looking for the goodness within, even when confronted by the most challenging aspects of existence. He left us with this powerful toolkit for navigating life's complexities, all wrapped in accessible, unforgettable stories and observations that just continue to resonate today.
So as you go forth from this deep dive, perhaps in your own unique way, you too can embrace Vonnegut's spirit of witty observation, profound humanism, and, unwavering kindness.
Which raises an important question for you, our listener. How can you, maybe in your daily life, use a touch of wit, or a moment of sharp observation, or just a conscious appreciation for the nice things? How can you use that to uncover and maybe share a deeper truth, making the world not just more understandable, but perhaps just a little more humane?